It's v.h.s.x. What do you mean?
Alright everybody, welcome back. We got another video suggested by one of you guys, so shout out to March in the Discord community for suggesting a SpookyLoopz video titled The Concerning World of Killer Anxiety. Now, as you guys know, I have actually talked about killer anxiety in the past because Refined had really popularized, I think, a lot of the discussion around it, at least from my perspective. I think maybe it was discussed previously, of course, but I think that a lot of the time before that, I don't think it was discussed as often or was able to be spread, I think, as enough without the help of Refined, without the help of myself, and then of course other creators also following suit to be able to do the same thing. So as much as I can say, like, SpookyLoopz is a little bit late to the party in that sense, better late than never is how I would describe it, especially because he had a lot of stuff that had to do with his life and everything, which I think he talked about on his own channel, and I'll let him explain himself, of course, in his own video if you care to watch that. But we're specifically going to be talking about the video at hand today being The Concerning World of Killer Anxiety Chapter 1, The Lobby, to kind of give into it. I'm not going to watch the full thing, of course, just talking points. Original videos in the description, along with the other channels that I have for video essays and Marvel Rivals content if you're not interested in continuing with DVD slop content. Maybe your killer anxiety is a bit too heavy. We have other channels that have to do with different content. I would highly recommend moving past this game. Let's continue.
Create pre-game stressors before you even join the queue. And a lot of that stems from the quote power roll expectation this game has. You are faster and dangerous, so anything less than that is embarrassing, right? You are fundamentally responsible for everyone's experience in the server, including yours. You don't have a teammate to carry you, and every mistake you make is on you and you alone. That's the expectation that many people have heading into a match or before they even click ready. So let's start with something simple like character selection. Depending on how some of your previous games have been, I've learned that some people avoid certain killers altogether out of fear for getting flamed for...
I have to talk about a few things. Number one, that's quite literally the perfect explanation that explains where the killer anxiety comes from, and that perfectly explains what the issue is when it comes down to this game as a whole, because of the mere fact that you are the core of the match. You are the most important player in that match. These other slot vibers are not important. You as the killer player are going to be way more important to the match than anything else, because you decide how the match is going to flow. By your presence alone pushes the game forward. And to think that to be somebody that important, you would think that they would get priority, or at least, because considering that survivors have only, or rather the slot vibers have only been able to gain the priority of the game and the developers, instead of the killers, which I think are the most iconic and are the most important because they move the game forward in the way that it does. That's already a problem. But SpookyLoopz is getting into specifically the killer selection and the fact that people will avoid certain killers because of the bad experiences that they had with them. And I can say I have done that myself. I've completely given up on playing Ghostface for as long as you guys who have been tuning in can probably remember at this point. I've completely retired that character because of the mere fact that there is literally no point. And I retired pretty much all my mains, I think, up to this point, because Pyramid Head's rework I didn't think was very great. I think they really nerfed him in a lot of ways, so I don't really play him at all. You can also consider Freddy, who's just countered by the Vigil meta and exhaustions in general. You can also talk about Myers as well, which I just don't think is very interesting anymore. He doesn't feel like Myers, which is, you know, its own thing and also just not very fun. And even Chucky, who's been completely, you know, drop kicked because of how slow he is and his ability cooldown, and the fact that just endurance is some of the biggest counters he has, which is disgusting and insane.
Simply existing. Ghoul, Nurse, Legion, etc. And God forbid you had a bad game when using them. You had trouble piloting a strong killer and got socially shit on because they were expected to perform to a certain standard. X killer does Y better equals you should have killed everyone. And when you don't, the social impact can resonate so bad that those killers go permanently back on the shelf. So what is the alternative?
See, SpookyLoopz just said it. That's exactly what I did. I've completely stopped playing my number one you could say favorite character. I don't really like the lore behind Danny Johnson necessarily. I more so like the mask and You know, I like to more so pretend it's a Scream license that we will never receive. But the fact of the matter is that I shelved my favorite characters because of that exact reason. And I pretty much don't play those characters unless directly, you know, when people request it through a dono of some kind, like $5 or something, boom, play this character here, and you can customize the whole build and everything on the stream, add-ons and everything. I even include cosmetic, but I don't think people really care for that too much. But regardless, I can say from personal experience that I've shelved it already. I've done that with confidence. I can say that for sure. But we're gonna go ahead and jump forward.
I understand the DVD community can be incredibly tribalistic. Survivors hate killers and killers hate survivors. This is absolutely nothing new. For me personally, I play both sides. However, I feel that some folks often forget or intentionally discount what this game requires the killer role to do because of their exclusivity or limited experience to one side.
That is very accurate, I have to say. That is very accurate. I think that is a really good way to describe it. I think the fact of the matter is that a lot of people do engage with that sort of conversation, and the problem is that people will use that mentality and weaponize it and use that to disregard any disagreement you have with somebody, and use it as a weapon to try to attack you with, to disregard any sort of argument, any sort of valid discussion you're trying to create, because they're so afraid of the us versus them discussion, which we've seen other creators like Scott Jund, who also was famously had tried to use that as some kind of talking point and to disregard everything that people were saying around that time, many months ago. And the problem with that mentality is the mere fact that you are blatantly choosing ignorance over taking into account what somebody is trying to say. And the only way that you're going to know what somebody's trying to say is if you hear them out to know what the point of it is. That's ultimately what it is. And that's why we cover the forum posts, why we cover these videos, because it's like we need to hear other perspectives and see how that compares to what we know and what we have seen, and compare that to what we then find out through these videos as well. Maybe they have an experience that I have not, and therefore they can inform me about something new. Or rather, I can say, no, that I disagree, that doesn't actually happen because I have these experiences and I have this form of evidence as well. And that's the whole purpose, right? So that's the issue. And SpookyLoopz is right on the money, because a lot of Survivor players refuse to even understand or engage with the killer side or the killer content, or really even try to remotely understand what the experience is about and why people are struggling on that side. And furthermore, that's why I have to commend the other creator that I had covered previously. I forgot their name though, but I'm gonna try to link it at the end, where a Survivor player decides to play killer and actually finds out that everything that we've been saying about killer was true, just through their own experience. But let's go ahead and give it a...
DBD is essentially a game of time, and whoever manages that time better usually wins. Since survivors can't kill killers like in other titles, it makes sense that the game is designed to put a heavier workload on the power roll. So, not asking for empathy here, however, in a game of DBD, the wheels can start to fall off at any moment, and for some, it's as early as the first chase. I made a YouTube community post a few months ago when I first announced that I was going to be taking on this project. I asked people to tell me what killer anxiety meant to them, and out of the over 400 comments, I noticed one very common consistency. The feeling of losing multiple gens in your first chase feels like shit. Out of my 8,500 hours, I can confirm that is true. The reason as to why this feels so bad is because it can be perceived as a direct reflection of your skill or performance. This usually turns into frustration or embarrassment, which unfortunately can lead to helplessness. For people with killer anxiety, this is worst case scenario happening in real time. That feeling of being in an unwinnable situation. The only difference between veteran players like myself and someone that is newer is we're just able to identify it sooner. It also doesn't help that DBD does a terrible job at providing educational tools for anything outside of Hook Survivor, Kick Gen. So it's no...
Yeah, that pretty much perfectly summarizes exactly what the killer anxiety experience is. And believe it or not, as I've covered even previously, there are genuinely some morons out there that deny that this even exists. Believe it or not. And all I can really add, and all I've actually have said towards those people is maybe you should be grateful that you've never experienced it. Maybe you should be able to say, you know, I'm an outlier in some kind of way. Just be happy that you are. Because what's wrong with that? Right? Because there are plenty of people that do experience it, and there's plenty of people that have no control really over that. It's a lot of pressure and stress to sit there and be the sole focus of the entirety of the match, because you're the driving force that moves everything forward at the end of the day. Because if not, they're just sitting on a gen all day, hitting a couple of space bars and walking out the door. You stopping them literally creates the gameplay as a killer player. Of course you're important, but behavior doesn't see it that way.
No surprise that players who invest too much time in their first engagement just get ran over. I have 1.5 generators left. A third of my perks require hook activation, and there are 14 pallets still left on the map. Since we understand that DBD is...
That's also the problem as well, is because another thing that contributes to the killer anxiety issue is the mere fact that you're losing gens in such a rapid pace that people, despite what, you know, SpookyLoopz stating here, that you may have overextended or something like that, or had too much attention focused on the first chase. Some players are not even doing that. Like, some players are just finding a survivor, or found somebody immediately, and immediately are losing 2 gens because of the spawns and the gen speed and all this other type of stuff. All of those things come into play, I think, and that's not good. But let's jump ahead and look at this part here.
This part can be a little different for players who use console, but something that gets most anxious people even more anxious is once the game is over. The actual social interaction. Every single thing that you have worried about, from sitting in the lobby to how you performed or actions you did in game to how the other side perceived you, is now all open for comment. Regardless if you win or lose, if someone wants to be an asshole, they're going to be an asshole. That's just the internet. A lot of the reasons as to why killer anxiety exists is because it's rooted directly to social interaction. One of the biggest branches in the anxiety tree is just being judged. When people have to speak in front of an audience or perform during a critical moment, the reason why they're anxious is not so much the task at hand, it's how people will perceive them if they fail. So when you play a certain way, pick a certain character, bring a certain perk, everything can be villainized depending on who you're playing against. And to people with this anxiety, these comments carry weight. You didn't deserve that win because you brought X. You played in a way I didn't like, so you should jump off a bridge. We won, but I'm still going to make you feel like shit because I can. The list goes on and on.
And that's the problem, right? That right there stems from the entitlement of survivor players. That it stems from the toxicity of the DBD community as a whole. That's the biggest problem. That is the biggest thing. And when we continue to have these updates that only continue to buff up these survivors, that only continue to keep on adding on to the free wins and the entitlement, and also the culture around playing DBD, whether it be the, like, as we already know, the survivor rule book. Basically, you can't play a certain way, you can't do a certain thing, you can't do this, you can't do that, which is only built to hinder your experience as a killer player, and only built for them to get free wins off of you. It's ultimately selfish, and it doesn't do anything for you as a player to follow it. It does nothing. All to try to avoid the berating in the endgame chat, and it still doesn't even prevent it, because it still happens anyway. It still does it anyway. It does not matter. Because at the end of the day, you should not be playing this game. I don't think there should be any game that is a multiplayer experience that should be making you feel afraid to play as that side, not because it's a horror game and it's scary, but to underperform and then be shit on by everybody you faced to this extent that it's literally everybody's talking about it. All of us equally talking about it. But that stems from the shitty community. It's a shit community at the end of the freaking day. It is. It is. Because all of that is just like, it all connects, and I think people don't see that, but it all connects at once. The entitlement, creating the rule book, what the rule book then gets applied to killer players. Notice that the killer players are always being shit on for using a strategy, playing a certain way, playing a certain killer, doing this, doing that. Yet survivors can run whatever they want, play whatever they want, play however they want, use every exploit under the sun, every broken perk combination, every broken exploit, every broken everything, and for some reason nobody is calling it out, right? No one within the survivor community is actively saying, yo, stop doing that shit, garbage bag. Like, learn how to actually play the game without using bullshit. But I guess they must be drowned out, or they just refuse to say anything. But then when the killer players say something, oh, now it's just the killer's crying, right? Makes absolutely no sense. And it just goes to show, when they say some shit like that, you already understand that it's just another side effect of the low IQ DVD community. It is what it is.
Sometimes these social interactions is the straw that breaks the camel's back, further solidifying anxiety and creating reasons as to why you should fear this happening again. At the end of the day, if someone wants to make you feel bad, they're going to do it. Win or lose, people are just like that. It could be the most normal chill game of DVD in your life and someone will still feel the need to take a swing at you. For instance, this arena hoping my wife and I have more miscarriages because I played the twins. What you choose to let bother you is different from one person.
So there you have it, right? There you have it. There you have it. If you ever needed any example of the survivor community and the DVD community as a whole, this right here is the perfect example. Because it's genuinely disgusting that, like, I'm at a loss for words for how atrocious, like, some people genuinely are in this world, and it's insane. And this is why I have told you guys in numerous videos that these people are mentally unwell. Like, these people are deranged. I keep fucking saying this because it's true. This is an example of what people are talking about with Queso and Flats, and even apparently Doja Cat, who also just thinks the game is ass. Like, all of these people are already saying the game sucks from the outside looking in. Now we got people within the community saying, look at what they said, because they recognized him. And because SpookyLoopz is sharing his life and his life story or whatever it may be, or his experiences with his community or whatever have you, and this person finds out about it, it's then becoming ammunition to be used to try to make you feel bad because you played the game. I mean, what else is there to say? Like, it speaks for itself. I'm like, what else is there? What else is there to say, dude? Like, what more do you want? Stop playing this game. Stop engaging with this community, dude. It's full of these deranged, low IQ, like, goblin creatures, like, in the sewers. Like, they look like orcs in freaking Lord of the Rings. That's how I envision the DVD community. And I'm not saying every single person in the community is like that, but notice the loudest are usually the orcs, man. They're usually sitting there and this is what they're saying. I already even covered previously when a streamer friend of mine had played perkless add-on Sadako and was told KYS because they're tunneling. And then when we actually reviewed the footage, they just kept standing in front of the Sadako the entire time. Like an idiot. But it's somehow your fault for them playing like shit. It's disgusting. And this is what I've been talking about. This is what I'm trying to give you guys some awareness for. Open your eyes. Stop playing this game. Play something else. And this is also why I'm trying to put you guys on for my other content that I'm creating, because at the end of the day, like, there's more passion that I'm putting into those things, because this community does not deserve your time. It does not deserve your passion. It does not deserve, you know, your love for the content, for whether it be the IP of a horror slasher movie or whatever it may be, or even your effort. And that's why I love the fact that there's creatives that within this community that are leaving. So shout out to Duke Riot once again, because we need creative people to move on from this. We don't need more of these people engaging with this. They don't need to hear this and read this all day. They don't need that. It's ridiculous. But I gotta know what you guys think in the comment section. Consider becoming a member on YouTube or Patreon for exclusive content and perks. And you can also check out the other channels for other content and help support it, man. Hit that sub button for those channels. We want to really get it off the ground. I'm still in the process of working on the content for the video essay channel, writing scripts and things. And of course, appreciate you guys. See you guys next time. All right, let's go ahead and read off these wonderful members. We got Patreon, Crow Vader. All my YouTube members, Brando, Evil Blade, Cap Courteous, WTF You're Not J-Lo, Evil Peach, Hargan Falcon, Dole Whip, Noxus, Zero Mocker, Jack, Christian, and Crow Vader. Really appreciate you guys supporting, man. And if you also subbed on Twitch, just know that you got love coming your way too. Appreciate you guys, man.